Alright, in this video, I'm going to be reviewing Season 1 of Sandman that released on Netflix this weekend. For those of you unfamiliar with Sandman, it is based on a comic book written by Neil Gaiman, and it is one of the most beloved and well-respected comics in the history of comics. Many people consider it their favorite comic, even. Now, I personally am a huge fan of the series. I've covered the entire thing on my channel, so if you want to learn more about the world of Sandman and see how the TV show compares with the comics, check out my coverage of the series. Now, one thing I want to mention with Sandman is that this is a series that is not for everybody. There are some people that will just find this a little bit boring, or they will go into it maybe expecting some intense superhero type battles to come out of it, and that is not really what Sandman is. Sandman is more adult. It is more so exploring various ideas and themes, and it can be avant-garde and artistic at times. And that is not for everybody, but for those of you that are into that, and for those of us that have really enjoyed the comic series, I think you will enjoy the TV show. And I think, for the most part, it is a successful adaptation, and I enjoyed it. Now, it is not perfect, but it does a lot of things right. Now, with regards to the comic accuracy, the TV show is one of the most accurate and true comic book to TV adaptations I have ever seen. There are some differences, don't get me wrong. One thing that is a little bit annoying is that they had to eliminate characters from the DC universe that appeared in the comic from appearing in the show, like John Constantine, Martian Manhunter, Etrigan the Demon, etc. I assume this was done to avoid complicated rights issues, so while I understand why they had to do it, it doesn't make me not disappointed by it. Another change is that there is quite a few gender and race swaps of various characters, some of which were very controversial. Now, I will elaborate on my thoughts on the casting more in a bit, but let's put that aside for now. So putting aside the race and gender swaps and the elimination of certain DC characters, the first season of the Netflix show covers the first 2 volumes of the Sandman comic, and it is almost a straight adaptation. Some scenes word for word. And after years of me complaining so many shows and movies not staying true to the source material, I kind of love that this show does. It really felt like it did justice for the most part. So some of these storylines I am talking about when I say the first 2 volumes of the comic are the Roderick Burgess and the Order of Ancient Mysteries storyline where Dream gets trapped. There is the Joanna Constantine swapped for John Constantine and their adventure to retrieve Morpheus's sand pouch. There's the whole John D. Dr. Destiny storyline, including an adaptation of the Diner issue, which was great. There is Dream going to hell. Dream and Death talking in what is basically a direct adaptation of the Sound of Her Wings issue. There's the Hobgaddling and Dream's 100-year meetings in the bar storyline. There's the Dollhouse storyline with Rose Walker and Jed Walker, the Corinthian and the Serial Convention. We get it all. And all of it, I felt, had the right visual flourish to it, and I was a big fan of the way they adapted it. If you are a fan of the comic and wanted to see these storylines brought to life in live action, we got it. One criticism I have, maybe, is that I like when a TV show adaptation expands upon the source material and fleshes things out, and allows us to spend more time with various characters and gives us some new scenes that were not in the original comic. For example, I love the Hobgaddling issue in the comic where him and Morpheus meet in a bar over the years. I would have loved more of that. Maybe some longer scenes, some more conversations between the two. Instead, we more so got a straight, direct adaptation. If you read the comic, there is really nothing new added in the TV show. Now that was just one example, but the show does not take much opportunity anywhere to expand on the source material, so that is a missed opportunity. However, I cannot complain too much on that because So many times I have been burned by arrogant TV writers thinking they can write a better story than the original author, and they change things and they go in different directions and completely alter the story, and they do a terrible job. So I like that this was more so playing it a little bit safe, maybe, and just giving us a direct adaptation. And because of that, I think the pacing was really nice, and we got to see a lot of the comic story. And to me, nothing ever felt dragged out or slow paced. Now, my thoughts on the cinematography of the show. I thought the budget looked sufficient and expensive and impressive. The first episode has a sweeping shot of the Dreaming heading into Dream's castle, and I thought, damn, that looks beautiful and expensive and magical. All these sets look really impressive, and you can see the care and detail they put into it, whether it is all the details in Roderick Burgess's mansion, or seeing all the demons in hell, or Lucien's library, or the castle, etc. Alright, now I want to talk about the casting of the show. The Sandman show famously and controversially made many gender and race swaps of various characters from the comic, and I will talk about them all. Ever since the cast was announced many months ago, people were arguing about it online. Look at a Reddit thread or a news article on Sandman, and it is just people debating about it. And now that the TV show is out, I see that debate has not stopped, and people are still raging about it on the internet. And some of the conversation is very toxic, which I don't like. Sometimes people are maybe racist, or there's the typical accusations of woke Hollywood changing things. Although in this case, there is so many changes, I don't think you could argue against that accusation. Now, me personally, I always prefer when casting choices reflect the source material as close as they can. And a lot of people are that way. I reviewed the Paper Girls TV show last week, and there's a character on that show called Mac. And on the show, she was basically a perfect copy of her comic counterpart, except she has orange ginger hair in the comic, and they left her hair brown for the TV show. And I saw many comments on my review of that show saying, come on, just dye her hair orange, please. Is that too much to ask? Now, that's such a minor thing, making the hair color orange, but Sandman did some more major changes. Some iconic characters were male in the comic and now switched to female in the show, and white characters were switched to black characters. And it can take some getting used to. And I totally understand if some people are in the camp where it bothers them, but I also understand if others are in the camp where they could care less and it doesn't bother them at all. And I feel both sides are entitled to their opinion. Just don't be toxic about it. Now, for me personally, I still would have preferred casting that matched the comic. I want to feel like the comic has come to life in live action. And having some of these casting choices deter some of that. But I'm going in with an open mind, and in the end, some of the casting changes didn't bother me that much because the actor or actress portraying the part did such a good job. But there are certain characters that are just too iconic to me. I just couldn't accept the change. My brain wouldn't allow it to not bother me. But anyway, here are my thoughts on the casting. So, Dream/Morpheus, played by Tom Sturridge. He had the perfect look. He matches the comic, and I thought he was a great interpretation of the character. The cadence of his speech, the way that he always looks like he's going to cry or something. Morpheus was kind of like that, in a way. So I thought all this was kind of perfect. A+ from him. Some of the other Endless family members, Despair and Desire. I thought the casting for them mirrored the comics very nicely. Death, famously one of the most controversial casting choices for this show. Death has this iconic, goth pale white girl look in the comic, and her look made her somewhat of a cultural icon. And casting black actress Kirby Howell-Baptiste as Death is a big change. It's almost like if you cast Harley Quinn or Wonder Woman with a black actress. Sure, you could do it, but it definitely is a change, and some people will have a hard time accepting it. For me, it took some winning over, but I thought Kirby Howell-Baptiste was great in the role in the end. She nailed the fun, playful personality of Death, and she had that beautiful aura to her that Death had in the comics. So I think it actually worked in the end. Now, another character, Lucien. Lucien was played by a female actress in the show. And the source material purist in me is still bothered by it a bit, but the actress playing Lucien did a great job. She speaks and acts how I would expect Lucien to act, so she kind of won me over in the end. Johanna Constantine, played by Jenna Coleman. Now, Johanna was in the comic technically, she was in the 18th century, but that was a different, older version of the character. In issue 3 of the Sandman, titled A Dream a Little Dream of Me, Dream and John Constantine go on an adventure together. And in the TV show, instead of John Constantine, the famous DC Comics character and occult detective, instead of John Constantine, we got this Johanna Constantine. And it just doesn't work the same, and it did ruin the enjoyment for me a little bit. Now, I assume Netflix couldn't actually put John Constantine into the show for some sort of rights issues, maybe, because he is a DC character in many other comics and TV shows and whatnot. So maybe Netflix had to take him out of the show, but still, what they ended up changing into was not something I enjoyed that much. Now, there was also Lucifer, played by actress Gwendolyn Christie, in another change from the comic. In the comics, Lucifer was a male and the Lord of Hell. And Lucifer was such a popular character, he even had his own spin-off comic series that went for many, many issues. And casting Lucifer as a female is a change. Gwendolyn Christie acted the part well, and I think mirrored the personality and writing of Lucifer in the comic pretty nicely, but I couldn't get over this one. I just really would have preferred a male in the role of ruler of hell. It's just so etched into my brain, I couldn't get over it, but I totally get if this casting change did not bother people at all. Unity Kincaid and Rose Walker and her whole family were white in the comic, and now they are all played by black actors. And the change really didn't bother me. I thought it was fine, and I really liked the actress they had to play Rose Walker in the show. Corinthian, played by Boyd Holbrook. He nailed the look of the Corinthian and the creepy mannerisms. And we also did get more of Corinthian throughout the first season of the show. He showed up more than he did in the comic, and I liked that addition. I thought it really helped add to the story, seeing him manipulate the situation over the years. Corinthian is such a great villain character, and any excuse to have him show up more is great. Beyond those characters, everyone else was pretty much a one-for-one adaptation of their comic book counterpart. Cain and Abel, great. Roderick Burgess and his son Alec Burgess. Mad Hetty. Stephen Fry as Gilbert / Fiddler's Green. Patton Oswalt as the voice of Matthew the Raven. He was fine. David Thewlis as John Dee. He was great. And Mark Hamill was even in this as Mervyn Pumpkinhead. Fantastic. So all of those I was really pleased with. In conclusion, while I would have preferred the DC comic characters like John Constantine to have stayed in the show, I get why they were cut. And while I would have liked if the casting stayed closer to the source material with regards to various characters, I was able to move past some of those decisions and still enjoy the show. Now, I would have liked the show to expand upon some of the storylines from the book, but still, I am happy that they did adapt all these stories very faithfully. There are so many storylines within the first 2 volumes that I would have just expected to have been cut, like, oh, we can't do the hell scene, we can't do John Dee in the diner torturing people, we can't do that, but they did it, and they adapted it all. They did the serial convention, so I love all the stuff that they did manage to get to. I really liked the aesthetics and visual design of everything, and the acting from everybody, so there is so much here that is great. Now, this show is not for everybody. My boomer parents who hate fantasy would not like this show at all, and they'll never get into it. But for those of us fantasy lovers out there, and for those of us that like the source material, I think there was a lot to enjoy within the Sandman, and I think it was a successful adaptation. Although I would have liked the casting to be a little bit different, but still, successful adaptation. I'm going to give this one an 8.5 out of 10. Thank you all for watching. Let me know your thoughts on season 1 in the comments, and be sure to check out the coverage of the Sandman series here on my channel if you are interested in learning more on the world of Sandman.